getting to the final topic of conversation right now as we tidy up this week's edition of shows on what is the hottest form of Alabama football talk. It's in my own words. I'll be yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine, live in studios. And before we dive into topic 3, got to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, of the Touchdown Alabama Magazine app. Greatest piece of technology that you should get your hands on when you look at the best in Crimson Tide news, notes, and information, very essence of your Alabama football program. You can download the app via the iPhone App Store if you're with Team Apple, Google Play Store if you have the Android phone, the audio podcast options conveniently there at the bottom of the screen. If your viewing pleasures just so happen to be iTunes, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, Overcast.fm. Hop to those sites right now to check out the hottest show in the streets. We've went over Tua Tagovailoa's durability. I think he'll be able to hold up for the entire 2019 season physically. We also touched on Dabo Swinney and would he be the de facto replacement, or does he fit the Alabama factor should in the future Nick Saban retires? But I'm not going to talk about that because the man is still coaching, which brings us to this right here. Najee Harris versus Brian Robinson Jr. The conversation at running back. Who will emerge as the better back in the upcoming season between Brian Robinson Jr. and Najee Harris? The Crimson Tide had 2 players leave together after the 2018 season to the NFL draft, that being Damien Harris and Josh Jacobs. Both guys were good. Both guys were highly talented. Damien Harris, a 2-time 1,000-yard back. Damien Harris, a former 5-star recruit. Damien Harris, the ambassador of all things Crimson Tide football. And while he had a solid career, no offense to him, but down the stretch of the 2018 regular season, Alabama found itself leaning more so on Josh Jacobs because he just had this ability to run with attitude. He had this ability to run with passion. He had this sense of versatility, and when he touched the football, he moved as if his life depended on it. And Alabama coaching staff was like, we have got to make sure this guy's hands touch the football, because when he touches the ball, big things, explosive things, positive things, huge plays happen. Not saying that huge plays did not happen with Damien Harris. They did. But Josh Jacobs just brought an extra gear, an extra oomph, an extra fire. It took Alabama an extra notch. Sometimes you need that extra shot in the arm. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you need that extra sip of coffee to get you going. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you need to take that vitamin to get that boost going. That's what Josh Jacobs was. He was that coffee. He was that vitamin. He got Bama to that upper octave, if you will. And when you look at the picture with Najee Harris and Brian Robinson, there's a good chance that both of these guys will enter the NFL draft together when you talk 2020. And as good as Najee Harris is, and as respected as Najee Harris is around the Alabama football community, to me, there's going to come a point in the fall, whether it's early on in the season, middle of the season, late down the stretch, like what happened to Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson Jr. could potentially have the better season, or could potentially supplant Harris as the better back, or the more productive back, or the marquee back for the upcoming year. As you size up both guys right now, starting this off with Najee Harris, the junior from Antioch, California, 5-star in the 2017 class at 6'2", 227 pounds. For a career, Najee Harris, 178 carries, 1,153 yards. He's got 7 touchdowns. This past year, 117 carries for 783 yards and 4 scores. When he came in the 2017 class, I believe he was the number 1 overall prospect throughout all boards. I'm talking ESPN, Rival, Scout, 247 Sports, 247 Sports Composite, you name it. Najee Harris was the number 1 back and the number 1 overall player on all recruiting boards. And as far as his strengths, he's got the size, once again, 6'2", 227 pounds. A lot of people compare him size-wise to Derrick Henry. He's got speed. He's got a ton of athleticism. You see his ability to hurdle defenders. He's got a stiff arm and is very elusive in open space. So the strengths for Najee Harris: size, speed, athleticism. When you dive into his weaknesses, number 1, he at times can be very indecisive. And when you are a running back, the moment that ball hits your hands, you already have to have your body in position to the hole you're trying to hit, the lane you're trying to run into or run through, and the avenue that you are trying to take. And there are times where, Harris can be indecisive. In terms of his power, that's a question mark for me, because as big as he is, he does not carry his pad level with him. Doesn't run with the low pad level consistently. Has a problem at times running through defenders. That's number 2. And number 3, Harris at times gets happy feet. Dances around the hole. Doesn't plant his cleat in the ground, get north and south, cut in the hole, and handle the business. And a lot of his weaknesses are not necessarily all his fault. If you look at the running backs coach for Alabama this past season, who was Joe Panunzio, great off-field guy, great guy in the player personnel department, but in terms as a position running backs coach, Burton Burns knew that position. Burton Burns just knew certain tendencies and how to push the right buttons to get every ounce of production out of the running backs. I mean, there was only 1 year where Burton Burns did not have a 1,000-yard back, and that was 2014. And TJ Yeldon, 979 yards. Of course, he battled through some injuries. Derrick Henry, 990 yards. He very well could have been a 1,000-yard back and should have been if Lane Kiffin chose to continue with the run game in the first ever college football playoff matchup between Alabama and Ohio State. But that's neither here nor there, and that's besides the point. The point being, Burton Burns knew how to coach that position and how to get the most out of the backs versus Joe Panunzio, though great guy, great personnel developer, in an upstairs role, not the guy that the running backs were able to connect the dots with. So Najee Harris, indecisive at times, has issues with power, and has happy feet in the hole. Got to clean those things up. In terms now, when you look at Brian Robinson at 6'1", 226 pounds, the 4-star in the 2017 class out of Tuscaloosa, went to Hillcrest High School, which is on Highway 69 South, some miles behind the University of Alabama. Brian Robinson, to me, you got to have those kids in your program that understand the tradition of the respective school in question. Brian Robinson, when I was covering high school, is one of few athletes that I self-scouted. And for guys like him, Paul Tyson, Henry Ruggs III at wide receiver, who hails from Montgomery, Alabama, it means more to them to put on that crimson helmet and that crimson and white uniform, that Alabama helmet and that Alabama jersey, because they identify with the position. They were born into this program. They were born into the history. They were born into, what Alabama football means. So when they put on the helmet, when they put on the jersey, when they enroll at the University of Alabama, it's like the Southeastern Conference slogan, this means more. They take to it more. It's more serious for them. This is life for those guys because, once again, they were born into the pageantry. And when you look at Brian Robinson for just a moment here, this past season, Robinson, 67 carries, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns. Throughout his career, 87 carries for 437 yards and 4 scores. When you look at the strengths of Brian Robinson, he's got the size, much like Najee Harris. He's got the speed. He's got the power. Brings his pad level with him. Runs to run through guys. But he carries that attitude just like Josh Jacobs. Runs like his life depended on it. Brian Robinson brings that attitude like his life depended on it, and also possesses versatility. If you go back and you watch the A-Day game, 6 catches for 52 yards, including a reception that should have went for 6 yards. Robinson able to make a couple of guys miss and take it for a 25-yard gain. So the young man's got some diversity on him as well. I remember talking with couple of offensive linemen, Ross Pierschbaker and Bradley Bozeman to be exact, during the open practice in 2017. Both offensive linemen told me when Brian Robinson touches the football, you get real excited because the way he runs, he seeks out contact. He seeks out defensive linemen. He seeks out linebackers. He seeks out defensive backs to deliver punishment. And the last guy Alabama had to play like that or to carry that type of style was one Derrick Henry. Brian Robinson carries that same type of style. He seeks to deliver the pain. And I remember talking to him during the media day portion of the Orange Bowl prior to Alabama taking on Oklahoma, and the patience of which he spoke with, the calmness, but also just the hunger. You can see in this young man's eyes, he desires, he craves, he lusts, he wants to be on that field because in his mind, he knows if Nick Saban ever turns me loose and puts the ball in my hands, I am setting the world, I am setting the college football landscape on fire. And that's the lone weakness in his game right now, just the lack of opportunities. Brian Robinson gets some more opportunities. We're going to see big time for production for that young man because he is a junkyard dog on that field. And speaking with a guy that trained Brian Robinson, told me, you got to have a dog in you to play at that position. And Brian Robinson has that dog in him. Alabama's going to have depth at running back. Trey Sanders, the 5-star coming in from IMG Academy. A lot of people are excited about him. Keelan Robinson coming in. Of course, Jerome Ford and Chadarius Towson, the 2 holdovers from a season ago. Chadarius Towson switching from wide receiver to running back. So a lot of depth at that spot. Offensive line, you got the group that can put a hat on a hat, drive folks off the football, create that run game, create that balance for an Alabama offense that people are not going to be worried about, but to have that balance is a key thing. And when you look at Najee Harris and Brian Robinson, the 2 guys in the forefront of this ordeal, both guys will look to go to the NFL together. But right now, when I see Brian Robinson, the hunger, the passion, the intensity that he has, at some point in the upcoming year, he has a chance to supplant Najee Harris and be the marquee back. No offense to Najee Harris. He's going to look to have a big season. But I just look at Brian Robinson. This guy's a madman possessed and wants to get out there and get some things done. So fans, who do you see? Najee Harris, Brian Robinson. Which one, in your opinion, has the better overall big year as both enter their junior seasons. It's going to do it here for In My Own Words. As always, Touchdown Alabama Magazine, bringing you the news, notes, and information around the Crimson Tide landscape. When we come back to resume next week's edition of shows, we start off with this Alabama defense and why fans should be excited about what this group is going to put on the field in the upcoming season. For all of us here at Touchdown Alabama Magazine, I'm your man, Stephen M. Smith. Till next time, folks, it's been In My Own Words.